there may and likely will come a time in which we have both an airborne disease that is deadly. And in order for us to deal with that effectively, we have to put in place an infrastructure, not just here at home, but globally, that allows us to see it quickly, isolate it quickly, respond to it quickly. And it also requires us to continue the same path of basic research that is being done here at the NIH, that Nancy is a great example of, so that if and when a new strain of flu, like the Spanish flu, crops up 5 years from now or a decade from now, we've made the investment. And we're further along to be able to catch it. It is a smart investment for us to make. It's not just insurance. It is knowing that down the road we're going to continue to have problems like this, particularly in a globalized world. I cannot think of a better example of an area where we should all agree than passing this emergency funding to fight Ebola and to set up some of the public health infrastructure that we need to deal with potential outbreaks in the future.
Well, here's another part of this. So not only was $3.7 million given specifically by the U.S. government and the National Institutes of Health for studying coronavirus in these bats, but beyond that, we also now know that NIH, the department associated with the National Institutes of Health, of which Dr. Anthony Fauci is in control, had already been conducting experiments with the Wuhan lab in the past in regard to coronavirus. Dr. Anthony Fauci's National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, NIH, actually funded a study on bat coronavirus, which was a project that included scientists at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, the Chinese lab at the center of the controversy over their bat research. But again, what is important here is that it was also the National Institutes of Health, under which NIH, Dr. Anthony Fauci's NIH is a part, that actually funded that $3.7 million research project on coronavirus in bats studied in Wuhan. The study was headlined, "Discovery of a Rich Gene Pool of Bat SARS-Related Coronaviruses Provides New Insights into the Origin of the SARS Coronavirus." But here's part of the problem, is that when someone like Dr. Anthony Fauci, who was in charge of the coronavirus response, the media is hyping him like crazy. We've already shown you how his connection to Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation is essentially pushing for a new global mandated vaccine, specifically for coronavirus. Fauci is now the man in charge of the U.S. response to the coronavirus, which would be very strange if he were responsible in part for the creation of this virus in the first place, or at least to getting out into the public. All of it.
Thank you, Mr. President. U.S. intelligence is saying this week that the coronavirus likely came from a level 4 lab in Wuhan. There's also another report that the NIH, under the Obama administration in 2015, gave that lab $3.7 million in a grant. Why would the U.S. give a grant like that to China?
The Obama administration gave them a grant of $3.7 million. I've been hearing about that. And we've instructed that if any grants are going to that area, we're looking at it literally about an hour ago, and also early in the morning. We will end that grant very quickly, but it was granted quite a while ago. They were granted a substantial amount of money. We're going to look at it and take a look, but I understand it was a number of years ago, right?
So you are.
When did you hear was the grant was made?
2015.
2015.
Yes, this is exactly right. So it goes back to 2014. The U.S. government decided, based upon certain virologists at that time, saying that, look, there's no justification for this kind of research. There's a potential for it to cause harm, cause a pandemic. So there's no justification for us to do this type of research. So the government passed a moratorium in 2014. Fauci approved budgets to be monies to be section for this type of research. So basically, and I'm getting really, every time I think about this, it gets me really flustered because I'm so angry that he basically broke the law. He more than broke the law. He created this entire cascade that we're seeing with the world shutdown was created by this initial aspect back in 2015. He broke the law. He went against government moratoriums. He took taxpayer money and he funded research that has now led to the COVID-19. In 2017, he was documented at Georgetown University saying that there will be a pandemic that this presidency will face, that this term will face.
There is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that. But also there will be a surprise outbreak.
How did he know that in 2017 that something was going to happen in 2018, 19, or 2020? You can't predict the market from 3 days from today, what's going to happen. How did he know that there was going to be a pandemic?
Is Fauci directly responsible for this pandemic because he maneuvered the money, he maneuvered around the moratorium, kept this chimeric research going in China? Is he directly responsible for not just the pandemic, but also the response that's killed the economy, put, 17 to 22 million people out of work? Is Fauci directly responsible?
I'm going to say this. I think that I've seen some petitions going around. I know Dr. Shiva said that Fauci should be fired. I think that's the nicest thing that could be done to Fauci. I think he's a criminal. He's broken the law. He's gone against the government. I mean, to me, that seems like it's a traitorous thing to do when the government has passed a regulation and he's at one of the highest levels in the NIH. He's got a directorship at the NIH, and then he breaks the law. He breaks the moratorium and then funds research against something that could potentially cause harm throughout the entire world. And he's in collusion with the foreign government.
This is the lead researcher into trying to develop a coronavirus vaccine at the National Institute of Health. Joining me now is Kizzmekia Corbett. Back with us also is Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who I know is going to be asking you questions as well, Doctor. I'm sure you get this question from anybody you meet who finds out what you do. Any idea when a vaccine, assuming that this vaccine works, when it might be available for use?
Yeah, so, we are targeting fall. We're targeting fall for the emergency use. So that would be, for healthcare workers and people who might be in constant contact and risk of being exposed over and over. And then for the general population, our target goal is for next spring. And that is if all things go well and if these phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 clinical trials work simultaneously for the good, our plan is to have people vaccinated all over the world by next spring.
So I think most of you know what I'm going to say in the next slide is something that we really have to get successful, and that is the development of a universal influenza vaccine, namely a vaccine that is not only effective against seasonal flu changes, but also pandemics, so that you do not have any distinguishing features between how you prepare for one or the other. And this is something that Gary Nabel and I wrote about 6 or 7 years ago when we were talking about the work that we started, and it's coming along pretty well. We don't have it yet. We're probably not going to have it for a few years, but we're getting closer and closer to a universal flu vaccine.
Remember, Fauci is now the man in charge of the U.S. response to the coronavirus, which would be very strange if he were responsible in part for the creation of this virus in the first place, or at least to getting out into the public.